She took off her clothes and she got into bed, and I told her we could not because we don't know each other.
We had a script conference.
And I said, thank you very much.
I had a couple questions about a line.
But it was inconvenient because
You can do it.
because I met someone else.
Oh, okay.
You believe that?
I do if you do.
But it's absurd.
So is our electoral process, but we still vote.
Hi, I'm Dom Griffin. I'm a film critic, and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. It's an ongoing video series where I talk about movies and television and pop culture and comics and all sorts of things. So if you're into any of those subjects, please consider subscribing. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about one of the greatest, I almost said one of the greatest living actors, but he's definitely dead, Philip Seymour Hoffman. We're going to be talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of my favorite actors of all time. Now, Philip Seymour Hoffman died like 6 years ago, and it was a great loss to like the world. He's just an incredible actor. And I've been thinking about the fact that it doesn't really feel quite like he's gone. I mean, like, we don't get new Philip Seymour Hoffman performances anymore because he passed, and that's kind of how that works. However, he's in a lot of movies.
44, big time. 2,000. 2,000, 100, 2,000, 2,000.
God, don't you want to fuck every woman you see just once?
I've spent the past 3 years learning Finnish, which should come in handy here in Virginia.
Like several tons, and he's done lots of things, and he's in a lot of works that people revisit or have never gotten around to watching. So it sort of always feels like you're getting new Philip Seymour Hoffman, even if you're seeing him in a movie you've seen like 10 times, because his performances are so dynamic and so varied and so versatile and so interesting that you're always getting like new pieces of him when you watch him in things. Lately, I've been just not finding new movies that I really like. Obviously, there's not new movies coming out necessarily, but also just like things I haven't seen before. I've not been like connecting to anything necessarily. So in my viewing habits, I've been watching movies I've seen before. And in the last year or so, I keep seeing Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, I talked about him a lot in my Twister video. He's a delight, but he just keeps popping up. I just keep seeing him in different things, and every time I see him, no matter how small the part is or how big it is or whatever, he's always like the best thing in the thing that you're watching. He's just so good. And I realize that it's very difficult to pick like a favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performance because one, they're all so good, and two, it changes like over time. Like sometimes you really like him in this or you really like him in that. I mean, for a very long time, my personal favorite performance of his was The Mattress Man and Punch Drunk Love.
Fuck! Did you just say go fuck myself?
But he's so good in so many different movies that like that shifts over time. I really, really love his performance in like Doubt, for instance, but that's not necessarily something I call his greatest. It's just really good. And at the moment, my favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performance is his turn as Joe White in David Mamet's State and Maine.
You know, that's a lie. You know, that's a real fault.
It's not a lie. It's a gift for fiction.
And I kind of want to talk about why. So like, here's why. Here's why I'm like so obsessed with this at the moment. So if you haven't seen it, State and Maine is a movie from about 2000 or so, and it's about this troubled movie shoot that transfers to a small town in Vermont, and it's sort of about the clashing between the urbane sociopaths who are trying to make this movie and then the like homespun everymen who live in the town and the vast chasm between them culturally and everything else.
Hi, Shelby.
Hiya, Doc.
How's the arm?
Still itching.
Good. The sign is getting well.
Yeah.
Afternoon.
Stop. That's what I told you.
Hey, did you see the grosses for Gandhi too?
It is one of my favorite movies about filmmaking. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. It's just sort of a perfect movie. Now, its writer-director, David Mamet, is like one of my personal favorite filmmakers, writers, storytellers. He's been very influential to me both as like a person who makes works that I like and watch and have always revered, and also his approach to storytelling has heavily informed and influenced what I see and appreciate and don't appreciate in stories, like in movies and fiction and theater or whatever. He's got a lot of politics I don't really agree with whatsoever, but Mamet as a storyteller, as a structuralist and things, like he's really big for me. And most of his movie work, the movies he's like directed, not just all the things he's like written and like ghostwritten in Hollywood over the years, but the movies he's directed tend to have like one thing kind of in common. They're all like very terse, dramatic explorations of things. And he's so into the like economy of like words and images to tell a story. Like if you ever read his book on directing film, it is something he actually lives by. Sometimes people write books or teach classes about like the way they tell stories and their movies don't actually add up, but Mamet like lives that style of storytelling. As a result of his particular style, a lot of his movies tend to be led by these like very terse, masculine male lead performances that are all very kind of like brusque and threadbare. Think of like Campbell Scott in The Spanish Prisoner, or like Gene Hackman in Heist, or even like Chiwetel Ejiofor in like Red Belt. Leading men in his movies tend to like have to fit this very specific thing because they're just sort of delivery systems for the story he's trying to tell. There's not a lot of room for like actorly experimentation in a David Mamet movie. Joe Mantegna in like House of Games, it's just like that. Like just stick to that sort of like, you're here, say the lines, do your part, and get the fuck out of the way. State and Main is more of an ensemble piece. Like there's a lot of different actors that play, and it's a kind of like this broad tapestry of like the town and the movie and everything that's going on. But Philip Seymour Hoffman does play the protagonist. He plays Joe White, the screenwriter of the movie they're trying to make. But his performance doesn't really fit into the Mamet leading man mold. So like, take Val Kilmer in the movie Spartan, for instance. Spartan's a Mamet movie from 2004. Val Kilmer plays like a special forces guy who has to get the president's daughter back. It's a very, very no-frills thriller. Like, they never even really go out of their way to tell you that it's a movie about the president's daughter going missing. Like, you just have to pick that up because it's just very the barest bones of plot and story that you have to pick up on. It really does expect you to do a lot of the work, and in a good way. It's a very strong, kind of underrated movie. And it does feature some of like the most notable hallmarks of Mamet's directorial style and the way he likes to tell stories on film. There's a lot of like repetitive mantra-like dialogue.
Where's the girl? Where's the girl, Jerry? Jerry, where's the girl?
Where's the girl?
And all of the actors tend to speak in a way where there's no real like color sauce on the delivery. It's just you give the speech, you say the words, and like let them do their job.
Let me speak to the Chinaman. You tell him the only man ever heard him call on Jesus.
Like Val Kilmer is sort of the perfect actor for that type of Mamet leading man. He has a strong presence and he's able to project a lot without having to like get super idiosyncratic about it. If you think about it, Philip Seymour Hoffman can do that kind of Mamet leading man acting in his sleep. I mean, his performance in Mission Impossible 3 as Owen Davian, the film's large villain, works so well because it basically feels like a parody of that style of acting.
Because you know what I'm gonna do next? I'm gonna find her. Whoever she is, I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna hurt her.
He's just blunt and to the point, and that's kind of what makes it stick out compared to other like mustache twirling villains and like spy movies and stuff. So like, it's not like Philip Seymour Hoffman can't do that, but in this particular movie, for one, it's not like a thriller, it's more of a comedy. He fits a very different role within the Mamet troupe of actors, so to speak. In this movie, he is sort of merging some of the like lighter work he does in his old comedies where he kind of plays like a supporting character, like a charming, like kind of schlubby guy a lot. He's mixing some of the lighthearted tone of those performances with some of the more like emotionally honest and raw stuff we know from some of his more dramatic leading roles. And in the middle, he finds this very specific range that maybe in another movie might not be so special or so interesting, but within the context of what Mamet has built for State and Main, it's very important, and also the linchpin of why the movie works so well. Mamet has a tendency to work with a lot of the same troupe of actors. People just pop in his movies all the time, like you regularly see William H. Macy, David Paymer, Ricky Jay, rest in peace, his wife Rebecca Pidgeon. There's people that just, you're used to seeing them in his movies. They pop up again and again and again. Clark Gregg from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the guy that plays Coulson, super Mamet mainstay. And in this movie, all of those different sort of like regulars show up, but they all fit basically one of two different archetypes. All the people working on the movie speak in this sort of dispassionate, slick-talking, fast-moving, disconnected way, where like they're just people doing a job. They don't really care about what's going on. They don't really care a lot about morality necessarily. They're just here to make a movie and make some money. Anything that gets in the way is like bullshit. So like everyone on that side of the cast does that kind of work. Particularly William H. Macy as the director and David Paymer as the producer. Like they both really have that approach down pat.
I got a shoot on Wednesday. I will not pay your blood money. And P.S., pal, I put the word out on the street and Betty Boop can look for work in Squiggle Vision.
And then other actors kind of fill in the roles of the townspeople who are all a little bit more like realistic, a little more low-key, but they're also basically sort of meld into the background of the movie. That's sort of the point of how they fit into the overall story of this movie crew essentially like taking over a town in order to make a movie. But what makes Joe White, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, so unique is he's the screenwriter of the movie that's being made. And in the Hollywood power structure, the screenwriter is sort of like the most unimportant person. Obviously, a screenwriter gets paid a lot more than like set painters and things like that, but in terms of like the, you know, above the line glitzier side of Hollywood. No one really gives a fuck about screenwriters. And I'm not talking about like now where like there's a lot of like TV showrunner moguls whose names we all know because of like J.J. Abrams and things like that. But in general, writers are, you know, they're like lesser than to directors and producers and things of that nature. This movie does a lot of fun playing with the idea that the writer is just like an unimportant, interchangeable person.
You understand? To our world, and you're a part of that world. I got a 5-picture deal with the studio. You stick with me, you write 1, 2 more. You stick with me, you'll direct the next one.
But Philip Seymour Hoffman uses that position of power to make Joe White as a character the middle point between the, you know, like liberal elite world of Hollywood versus these people who live in a small town. He's the closest thing the movie has to like an everyman in the sense that he's not as like brain poisoned as the Hollywood people, but he doesn't seem like an extra the way the movie treats all the people who live in the town. Joe is, in a sense, like, torn. He's conflicted between this world he comes from now, where he's a playwright who is now making a movie and has the potential to make a lot of money, but in order to do that, he's going to essentially just subsume who he is as a person. Or is he someone that wants to, like, stay in this town? Like, he finds love, he finds connection, he finds, like, authenticity in this world that they're visiting. And he's able to play this really great counterpoint to, like, Alec Baldwin and Sarah Jessica Parker play the two lead actors in the movie, and they're both just playing like weird caricatures of themselves. So Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing sort of a likable everyman guy as the writer, but he's one of the few people who shows up in a Mamet movie and feels like he's able to embellish a little bit. Like, he's not making his performance super quirky or making him like really, you know, different and everything and like standing out. It's more just that he seems more real.
She doesn't show her tits.
Just get me the money. Just get me the goddamn money.
Hey, she doesn't show her tits. She doesn't show her tits. Her breasts symbolize motherhood.
The breasts symbolize motherhood?
The movie's about purity. So we don't show her breasts. We show them to him. She keeps her back to the camera.
It'll hurt the box office.
They know what her tits look like.
But Hoffman, in his gestures, in his delivery, in his optimism, he sort of represents like this naive magic at the core of movie making, right? Like, we all know that like movies are made by like, you know, like socially responsible and like morally controversial people. Like, the whole core of this movie, and the reason they're having such difficulty making the movie is because their lead actor, Alec Baldwin's character, is a fucking pedophile. Like every town they go to, he's trying to fuck a teenage girl. Like, that's the movie you're dealing with. And like the conflicting thing that Joe is tied up in is whether or not to expose Alec Baldwin's behavior in the movie.
I treated you like a son or a nephew.
It's not about you.
No? What's it about then?
I have to tell the truth.
That is just so narrow.
The fact that he represents this like kernel, this little nugget of the movie making process, like the guy who has a cool idea for a story and just wants to see that story, you know, made large and told on a big screen. He's a counterpoint to the whole apparatus of people he's working with who don't have any of that naivety left. Like,
That's what she says. That's what she says. He says, sister, I've come from a fire. But she realizes it was not the fire which hurt him, that the true hurt was her.
all that stuff is completely burned out of him. And as a result, he ends up being a unique exception to the rule of what you see in most Mamet movies. Most Mamet movies and his plays and everything he writes, characters are either like smart, like people who know what's up, who like know the deal, you know, they know like what the shot is.
You want to learn the first rule you'd know if you ever spent a day in your life. You never open your mouth till you know what the shot is.
And then like people who don't, and they're assholes and they're useless.
You fucking child.
So his movies don't always have a lot of room for people who are like caught in the middle and are conflicted. This movie does have that, and it has it solely, specifically within Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance. Even if you read it on the page, it doesn't come off that way when you read the script. Like, it really, really is what he is doing on screen. And it kind of lends the movie like this weird, aw shucks, kind of like Frank Capra-esque candor to it. You know what I mean? In the movie, he is playing a writer who is struggling to write a movie about purity and integrity, and he is a character who is in a movie about purity and integrity, and it's a touching struggle to see him try to be like a good person while still making this movie. And it's like the only David Mamet movie that actually makes you feel that specific feeling. A lot of his movies are good. Lots of his movies tell cool stories and are interesting. But the only one he's like ever made that has a like likable, relatable person struggling to do the right thing happens to star Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's a movie I'm not 100% sure Mamet could have made with another actor. Like, there's other people you could have put in that role who would do like pretty good work, but that slot needed to be filled by this very specific kind of emotion and energy, and I don't know who else could have done it other than Philip Seymour Hoffman. And if you're watching this video and thinking that that's not even close to his like top 5 or top 10 best performances, that's kind of what I'm getting at. This is a man who could show up in the middle of like a very, very accomplished filmmaker's work. Someone has tons of very strong, very well-respected movies, and help transform them into like this whole other thing that transcends that person's usual style. And that's something special, you know? Anyway, that's me on Philip Seymour Hoffman and State and Maine. Really fantastic movie. If you've never seen it, you should definitely watch it. It's really, really funny, really well made. And, you know, after that, watch any Philip Seymour Hoffman movie. You'll see what I'm talking about. He's one of the greats. And, you know, I just really miss him sometimes. Thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone's doing well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments about the actor, the movie, or anything, please hit me up in the comments. Love talking to you guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing because I put out videos like this every week. So if you subscribe, hit the little bell icon, you'll get notifications for when I put out new content. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and have a great day.